We have an opportunity, I think, to share with y'all some of the things that are going on in the community, and this is kind of an unusual. This has been a year unlike any other, and we have learned to do old things new ways, and we have had to become innovative as you have. And so, as a matter of fact, right now we're doing what I have termed getting together by staying apart. And I do want to welcome, there are some folks that are tuning in to kind of watch this. Typically, we have this at the Trade Center. And as Senator Harbison just pointed out, we usually got lunch. So we hope everybody brought their own sandwich. But we also make sure that we have room for any residents or any citizens that want to sit in and kind of observe. So it's important to us to kind of continue with our transparency to try to make sure they still had that opportunity. So we are broadcasting this and allowing the citizens to kind of listen in, as it were, on what we talk about. But yeah, I think the main thing is that we are getting together. We've struggled with this COVID pandemic, just as y'all have from a state perspective. And I'll just share with you a little bit about your citizens here in the Valley area, about what a great job they've done. We have complied all along with the governor's executive orders. We have made sure that anything that we do was within the constraints and the confines of those orders. And frankly, I think it's worked well, because the citizens of this community have really kind of taken to heart and heeded the words that we shared with them that really came through the governor and originated in the CDC and the health department. Very quickly, we did enact a mask ordinance, and we did it in accordance with the guidelines that the governor had set forth in his order. The threshold that he had kind of mandated was a 100 cases per 100,000 population over a 2-week period. So we watched what was going on in our community and in other communities. We sort of watched what Augusta and Savannah and even Athens were going through, and how quickly or how slowly it took for the mask mandates to have an impact on their numbers. And back around the 16th of August, right in the middle of August, we were at about 400 cases per 100,000 for a 14-day period. We put a mask mandate in place on the 25th, I think. Well, we're now down to 74 cases per 100,000. That's the good news. Bad news is we can no longer enforce the mask ordinance. So instead of repealing that, what we did is we just issued a press release saying we suspended the enforcement of it. That way, if our numbers, because we know cold weather's coming up, we know there's going to be a lot of holidays that people are going to gather indoors. So we just wanted to have it pretty handy in case we needed to reinitiate the enforcement piece. So that's just kind of a little snapshot to let you know we've been doing with regards to COVID and how we've been looking after the citizens that we all serve. But I did want to make one mention to our staff and the employees, the attitudes that they have brought to their responsibilities in serving our citizens every single day, despite all the fear and all the challenges that they've faced with the pandemic. Has just been nothing short of amazing. It's actually what allowed us to kind of continue to keep some momentum. Columbus had a lot of momentum just prior to the pandemic, and we know we've got folks that are hurting. We know we've got some small businesses that are hurting, but by and large, we have held on to some of that momentum. And I think that's due in no small part to this delegation, their leadership, and our staff and employees for the way they have continued to serve the citizens of this community. So we're very, very convinced that as we start to emerge on the other side of this, that we'll ramp up that momentum very quickly. And I know that, and I think the citizens understand as well, that a big part of us being able to recapture that momentum is the partnership that we enjoy with our delegation. I've talked to other mayors and I've talked to other elected officials, and I'm telling you, just nobody has the kind of positive relationship that we do with their delegation. And there are no other delegations that I'm aware of that work better together to serve the folks that they are elected by. So I'll end by saying thank you for what you do every day and in looking after the citizens of this area. And we look forward to sharing some interesting news with you, and also talking about a few legislative items that we'd love for you to carry with you back to Atlanta when you guys get back in session. But right now, I'm going to ask Deputy City Manager Lisa Goodwin. Probably should have done this first, but I'm going to ask her to return thanks. Even though we're not having a meal, we do like to ask God's presence on our any proceedings that we undertake for this city. So, Deputy City Manager Goodwin.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, Mayor. Please join me as we bow and pray according to my faith and my tradition. Father God, we come before your presence, thanking you for a new day, a day we have not seen before, and a day that we have yet another opportunity to get it right. We thank you for these servants who are called for your purpose, to serve the greater good even at a time like this, in a pandemic and during a time of social ills. We ask your blessings be upon each of them and their families as they work to create a better state and a better city. We ask these blessings in the matchless, marvelous, miracle-working name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. And I'm going to turn it over now to probably the best city manager in the Southeast, not just Georgia. Ms. Hughley.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just take this opportunity to welcome the members of our legislative delegation to this, our 13th annual Hometown Connection. Due to the COVID, and we're all dealing with COVID, but due to the COVID pandemic, we decided to hold this meeting virtually. This is our first virtual Hometown Connection meeting, and I want to thank you for your participation. Thank you for your service to our city and the state of Georgia, to the members of our delegation. And I want you to know that this virtual meeting is being televised live on our CCG TV. We are live streaming this meeting. We're live on Facebook and on YouTube. And so the citizens of Columbus will get a chance to see their legislative delegation in action, meeting with the members of City Council and staff to talk about issues and concerns that are good for Columbus, Georgia. I also want to welcome and thank Tom Gale from Georgia Municipal Association and Clint Mueller from Association County Commissioners of Georgia for joining us today. So thank you, Tom and Clint, for representing Columbus, Muskogee in our legislative efforts when you're working down at the Gold Dome. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your participation and your leadership. Mayor and Council, you've approved a legislative agenda to present today to our legislative delegation that you believe will make Columbus, Georgia a better place to live, work, and play. Though the COVID-19 pandemic has been a challenge, we have worked hard, as you've heard the mayor say, to take care of the essential and critical needs of our citizens. We have worked hard to keep them safe by following CDC and Department of Health guidelines and best practices. We have followed executive orders issued by the governor and Mayor Skip Henderson. By following the executive orders, CDC and Department of Public Health practices and guidelines, we believe we have been able to minimize the impact of the pandemic on our local citizens, and we have been able to minimize hospitalizations and deaths. I want to thank the citizens of Columbus for their support, understanding, and cooperation. Next on my agenda, or on our legislative Hometown Connection agenda today, we will hear from Angelica Alexander, our finance director. Angelica will provide us a finance update for the Columbus Consolidated Government. I want to thank Angelica for the fine job that she does in managing the city's finances. Before Angelica speaks, I want to share a story from Wallet Hub on best and worst run cities in America. I am proud that of 150 cities in America, to our delegation and to the mayor and council, I'm proud that of 150 cities in America, Columbus, Georgia is listed as the 17th best run city in America. When you get a chance, members of the delegation, please Google best run cities in America to read the June 29, 2020 news story. Wallet Hub measured the effectiveness of local leadership by determining the city's operating efficiencies. In other words, they look at how well city officials manage and spend public funds by comparing the quality of services residents receive against the city's total budget. Using that approach, Wallet Hub compared the operating efficiency of 150 of the largest U.S. cities to reveal which among them are managed best. They constructed a quality of life, a quality of services score made up of 38 metrics grouped into 6 service categories, which they then measured against the city's per capita budget. When you Google, members of the delegation, best run cities in America, you will be able to read the story and see their findings, expert insight, and a full description of their methodology. Wallet Hub compared 150 of the most populated cities across 6 categories: financial stability, education, health, safety, economy, and infrastructure and pollution. Again, I am proud to inform you that Columbus, Georgia is listed as the 17th best run city in America. And so with that, I present to you our finance director, Angelica Alexander, to provide you with a finance update. But I wanted you, the delegation, to know how proud we are to be ranked 17th on that list by Wallet Hub. That says a lot for the mayor, the council, the staff, the leadership of this organization, our city, Columbus, Georgia. And so with that, I'm going to yield to our finance director, Angelica Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. So I'm going to cue up the presentation here, and I hope everyone can see it. So the city's total operating budget for FY 2021 is just over $280 million. This is about 1.5% less than the FY 20 budget. And the decreases are due to reductions in some of our capital outlay and debt service obligations in some of our operating funds. The 2021 budget certainly presented its share of challenges and difficult decisions, just due to all the uncertainties related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Yet we were able to balance the budget with only appropriating a limited amount of reserves. As you can see from the chart, the general fund makes up the majority of the city's operating funds at $155 million, or about 56% of the total operating budget. The other loss fund is the second largest operating fund at $36.3 million, and the remainder of our operating funds are centered around other service and recreational-based activities, such as public works, economic development, community services, debt service, and other service operations like the Trade Center, the Civic Center, and our public golf courses. So where does the money go? This chart just shows how the city's expenditures are distributed. The highest priority continues to be funding public safety. And in the FY 2021 budget, 38% of all expenditures will be used for public safety purposes. Public Works accounts for another 10%, community services, which includes the contract with the medical center for the provision of indigent and prisoner health care, represents about 8% of total operating expenditures. So where does the money come from? As you can see from this chart, the city has a diversified set of revenue sources, which is positive for us. Also shown in this chart, general property taxes account for approximately 30% of the city's annual revenues, while sales and use taxes accounts for 26%. Other primary sources of revenues are franchise fees and business taxes, which brings in about 17%, as well as charges for services that the city provides, which is 15% of annual revenues. There is about 1.6 million of fund balance reserves included in this budget, with approximately 1.5 million from the other local option sales tax fund. Just later on in the presentation, we'll talk more about fund balance reserves and how continued use of fund balance over time depletes any municipalities' long-term reserves. So this sales tax collection by fiscal year chart just shows the trend of collections for the original local option sales tax. The dip from FY08 to FY09 reflects the onset of the Great Recession, when consumer spending dropped sharply, leading to the collection of a much lower sales tax. We then experienced annual increases in our sales tax revenue in FY10 and FY11, and by FY12, sales tax collections were essentially restored and slightly exceeding pre-recession levels. However, since then, sales tax collections have sort of ebbed and flowed, as seen in this chart, with its constant up and down fluctuations. On a positive note, though, we experienced an increasing trend in sales tax revenue since FY18, and we do hope that this trend continues and we experience even more growth in our sales tax revenues. And I like to think that we are actually heading in that same direction. We received the sales tax numbers, and I haven't reported this yet to the mayor or the city manager, but we did receive the sales tax numbers this morning, and it's up about 1.5%. September sales tax collections are up about 1.5% over September of 2019. So this sales tax industry mix chart just shows the makeup of our sales tax revenue that we received in FY20 by industry sector. As you can see in the chart, the largest portion of our sales tax revenue comes from the general merchandise sector. And this particular sector includes businesses such as department stores, shoe stores, clothing stores, office supply stores, and other general merchandise stores, just to name a few. At 19%, food and bars is the second largest sector, which includes businesses such as grocery stores, full service and fast food restaurants, liquor stores, and other drinking places. So this sales tax industry mix chart here just compares August 2019 to August 2020. So this shows what was the latest, the industry mix data that's available. And as you can see, the general merchandise and food and bars are still the top two sectors. Also shown here, most sectors are in line with prior year collections, with the exception of wholesale general trade and accommodations. Our accommodation sales tax revenue typically averages around 2% of total sales tax revenues. Right now, it's only 1.3% of current collections, and we actually expected some decreases in our transient occupancy revenue because of COVID-19, and we're hopeful that it will pick back up as the tourism industry recovers from the effects of the pandemic in 2021. So in discussing increases in sales tax revenues, those same increases may be relative to consumer price increases. This consumer price index chart just shows the percentage change of prices for goods and services for very specific categories over a period of time. And this particular time frame represents September 2019 to September 2020. As seen in this chart, the price of all items in the Southeast increased by 1.3% when comparing those two time frames. In more specific categories such as food, housing, and medical care, prices are higher this year when compared to last year, whereas apparel and transportation prices are down. So what is the Consumer Price Index, or the CPI, which is also known as? Why is that important? So the CPI gives the government, businesses, and citizens an idea about price changes, and it's a tool for measuring economic performance. It's presumed that during times of high unemployment, economic conditions are weak, which is reflected with the lower CPI growth rate. And then vice versa. During periods of low unemployment, economic conditions are strong, which is reflected in a higher CPI growth rate. So this particular slide just shows the relationship of the CPI when coupled with unemployment, and again, it just shows their inverse relationship. As you can see in the chart, the top chart, the top blue line represents the unemployment rate over a 12-month period, and the yellow line represents the CPI growth rate. So the goal would be for the lines to either meet as closely as possible or even cross over each other, as this suggests strong economic conditions. And so as you can see, in April of 2020, when unemployment was at a 12-month high, we experienced some deflation for the first time over that same 12-month period, with the CPI being down the 0.2%. So as we continue to recover from the effects of COVID-19, we hope to see these two lines come closer together sooner rather than later, obviously. A strong economy keeps the revenues that we depend on flowing into the city's coffers, and this helps us maintain and grow our fund balance reserves. And I've listed here the unemployment rate for Muskogee County as of August 2020. This is the preliminary rate that was posted to the Department of Labor's website. We were at 7.2%, which is lower than the United States, which was at 8.5%, but slightly higher for the state of Georgia, which is at 6%. So fund balance. Fund balance is, obviously important to us because it provides us with much needed reserves in times of financial emergencies. So the Government Finance Officers Association has established the benchmark of not less than 60 days worth of operating reserves. However, our administrative policy is a little more stringent than that, with a goal of maintaining 90 days. We rely on our fund balance in the short term to manage cash flow cycles and address emergencies, and it's also used as a key metric by rating agencies to determine our credit worthiness when we're looking to issue debt. So fund balance is created or increased when the city's revenues exceeds its expenditures, resulting in a surplus of funds. And so conversely, when the city's expenditure needs exceeds its revenues for whatever reason, the fund balance is dipped into to resolve the issue. So this slide just shows the history of the city's fund balance reserves over a period of time. And as you can see, beginning with the onset of the 2007-2008 recession, the city has been forced to dip into its fund balance reserves every year in order to sustain its ability to operate and provide, the level of services that our citizens are accustomed to. So essentially, fund balance has been included as a revenue source in order to balance the operating budget. So the blue bars represents the amount of fund balance remaining in terms of days of cash on hand, while the red line reflects our desired goal of 90 days in reserves, and the yellow line reflects our policy minimum of 60 days. And again, we cannot fall below that yellow line without endangering our bond rating, potentially endangering our bond rating, and our ability to sustain our operations. So because of the continued reliance on fund balance reserves and obviously not putting additional funds back for a period of time, particularly beginning in 2011, we began adding the other lost fund balance to show the total fund balance in reserves. And this is entirely legitimate because other local option sales tax funds and general funds are not distinguishable for reporting purposes, and it's in accordance with accounting standards. And, but obviously we prefer not to rely on the old lost funds to shore up our fund balance for operational purposes. We have other needs that we'd like to utilize those funds for. But as you can see, the continued depletion of the fund balance reserves each year has reduced the amount from the optimal goal line of 90 days to a dangerously low point of 54.54 days in FY16. But I'm happy to say that we have made some strides in replenishing our fund balance reserves since FY16. And again, this is obviously very important to us. Anytime we're we're seeking credit because it's important to the bond rating agencies. So typically, financial industry experts provide their economic outlook for different sectors of the economy. And so this particular slide is an excerpt that was pulled from the economic outlook prepared by Moody's Investor Services in December 2019, and it's for the calendar year 2020. So prior to COVID-19, Moody's outlook for local governments was stable. They anticipated strong growth in property tax revenue and strong liquidity in terms of cash flows to help offset slower economic growth. However, they have since revised their outlook. They made this revision in April 2020, and they've revised the outlook to negative. And that's because the expectation of the duration and intensity of the coronavirus impact on the economy grows in its severity, and it is thus creating materially weaker economic conditions. So even in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, Moody's reaffirmed our bond rating, which is good news to us since our bond ratings are strong. One of the things Moody's denoted in the report that they provided to us in June 2020 was that they regarded the coronavirus outbreak as a social risk under its environmental, social, and governance framework. And that's given the substantial implications for public health and safety and the economy. However, they did not see any material immediate credit risk for Columbus, which again is positive news for us. So this last slide just shows the growth in the digest and property tax revenue over time. According to Moody's, during the last recession and the associated decline in property tax values, many localities saw rapid growth in property tax revenue in 2009, even as the downturn gathered pace, only to see a reversal of those gains beginning in 2010. And that's as shown in the chart at the top of the page. Moody's has advised that weakened economic conditions will persist. They project that the U.S. economy will contract by 5.7% in 2020, with a full return to pre-coronavirus levels in the third quarter of 2021. They suggest that declines in property tax revenue will take longer to materialize compared to drops in other revenue sources, and then growth will be materially lower, obviously, than they originally anticipated. So what's reflected in the bottom chart is the tax digest for Columbus based on our certified digest over a period of time. And as you can see, there's been no significant growth in the tax digest since it peaked in 2008, right before the recession hit. The dip in 2010 was due to a significant property tax rollback in conjunction with implementation of our other local option sales tax. But since then, recovery has been modest and tax revenues collections have been consistent, as you can see through in the chart with the yellow line. So we're hopeful that any sluggish economic recovery related to the pandemic will not be as impactful to us as it was for other localities. We do have another dip in the digest in FY21, and that is simply due to the change in the law relative to title ad valorem taxes. Effective July 1, 2019, the legislature removed the motor vehicle ad valorem tax true up. So the value of that property, according to our tax commissioner's office, was removed from the digest this year. And although this seems like bad news, it's actually a positive change for the general fund because we've experienced a significant increase in our title ad valorem revenue, which is all general fund revenue. And Mr. City Manager, that it concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions at this time if there are any.
Let me thank you, Angelica Alexander, our finance director. We're certainly proud of the work that you and your team do for us. And so what the delegation have heard as we've gotten this meeting off to what I believe is a good start is that we're the 17th best run city in America. And our bond rating says that we have a strong, healthy financial profile. And so I attribute a lot of that to our finance director and her team and the great work that they do. Mayor, I'd like to really pause before we continue on to the next topic. I know that some that were not able to join us when we kicked the meeting off, but they're now present. And if you can, members of the delegation and members of council, I'd ask that you turn your cameras on for just a couple of minutes, that those watching by CCG TV, on YouTube, Facebook Live, or live streaming will know that you're present and we have a meeting together, the elected body of our delegation and the elected body of legislative body of our city, working together in what we call hometown connection, working together so that when our delegation, when they go back to Atlanta, they are working on behalf of the citizens of Columbus, Georgia. And so I know that we have, of course, we have our Honorable Mayor Skip Henderson, you see him, and we have the Honorable Bruce Huff, we have the Honorable Charmaine Crabb, we have the Honorable John House, Judy Thomas, we have, if there are other council members, I'd ask Councilor Toya Tucker. The Honorable Toya Tucker is on or in this meeting. So we have a number of council members in this meeting. And then we have our distinguished delegation, the Honorable Calvin Smiley, the Honorable Richard Smith, Carolyn Hughley, the Honorable State Senator Ed Harbison, and the Honorable Debbie Buckner. If there are others on, the Honorable Senator Randy Robertson is on, and I'm going through this list. If I have not called your name, please let me know.
I sent it to Priscilla.
Isaiah, I'm here. Mimi Woodson.
Okay, the Honorable Mimi Woodson, yes. Is there anyone else that I don't see listed? We do want the citizens to know that you're present. And so with that, Mayor, I believe we have the Honorable Gary Allen, the Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem, are you? So I wanted the citizens to know who's present. And with that, let me go back to the finance director and her update. From members of the delegation, are there any questions from you? And members of council, are there any comments from you? I'd ask that you ask your questions at this time of our finance director. Okay. Hearing none. Let me move on to Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge. She is going to share with you the state of infrastructure, quality of life here in Columbus, Georgia. And this is not all, but just wanting to give you a taste of the state of infrastructure and quality of life here in Columbus, Georgia. Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge.
So good afternoon to each of you, and thank you for your time today. Deputy City Manager Lisa Goodwin and I have worked with Mike King of the CCG TV and his team, as well as Rick Jones, our planning director, to put together just a short video to outline our quality of life and infrastructure projects that are going on now. So we hope you enjoy it. And of course, at the end, if you have any questions related to any of our projects, we'll be happy to answer those.
Columbus is a city on the move, known for its small town feel and southern hospitality. It is also a community that is known for its vitality and forward thinking. From its vibrant commercial centers to its quality neighborhoods, Columbus has something for everyone. To continue to promote a high quality of life for all of our citizens, Columbus continues to invest in itself to ensure that our community will always have a strong transportation system, the needed infrastructure for development, good jobs, and great places to live. To show you what we mean, we want to take you on a quick tour of just some of the new projects and developments that are coming online to make Columbus an even greater city. The Columbus Riverwalk at Bibb Mill is a $10 million Transportation Investment Act project that completed the Riverwalk project that was started in 1995. This 22-mile multi-use trail facility connects the Lake Oliver area with the Uptown area and provides direct access to Fort Benning. The completion of the project now provides opportunities for new economic development along the Chattahoochee River that have been somewhat isolated from other parts of the community. Along with the opportunity for new development, the Columbus Riverwalk also provides recreational opportunities such as biking, jogging, and walking. This project, which also provided a connection at the former City Mills site, is currently a finalist in America's Transportation Awards program, sponsored by the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. Columbus Spiderweb. This $40 million plus TIA project will include the construction of a new multi-lane bridge to cross over the Norfolk Southern Railroad. The railroad dissects Buena Vista Road, and at times, when trains cross this busy intersection, it causes delays to traffic and hinders emergency responders. Today, approximately 27,000 cars per day use this major arterial to get from East Columbus to other points in the community. The new bridge will benefit the area by improving travel times and by providing greater safety to the community. Construction is scheduled to begin in early 2021 with a completion date of late 2023. Buena Vista Road interchange at I-185. This is another TIA transportation project that will construct a new diverging diamond interchange to alleviate existing congestion needs while improving safety for those using this roadway. This will be the first interchange of this type to be developed in Columbus that will require motorists to travel on the left side of the road on the bridge going over I-185. There are several of these that have been constructed in the Atlanta area and have been shown to reduce congestion and accidents in these areas. Right-of-way is to be secured by the Georgia Department of Transportation, and demolition activities of those structures on the corner of this interchange are underway. Construction will begin in 2021 and is estimated to be completed within 3 years. The last of the 2012 TIA projects to be constructed is a new $58 million interchange to provide access to I-185 from Old Casita Road and all of South Columbus. The result will be a dramatic economic tool for our community. It will allow the citizens of this area direct access on and off the interstate to promote new jobs and new industrial growth. Also, it will improve travel times for drivers, increase lane capacity, improve efficiency and reliability for freight, cargo, and goods movement. The proposed project will also provide for better local connectivity to a statewide transportation network. In short, the addition of this interchange will open up new economic growth and opportunities to that section of the community that is currently isolated from the rest of the city. The Georgia Department of Transportation has begun work on replacing the Oglethorpe Bridge on State Road 520, U.S. Highway 280 over the Chattahoochee River. Currently under design, this project calls for the eventual demolition of the existing 1960s bridge and replacing it with a multi-lane roadway with greater pedestrian access. The existing bridge is showing signs of aging and stress. A new bridge would be designed to carry the continual increase in truck and car traffic while promoting a new gateway into Columbus with a distinctive design that symbolizes Columbus. At this time, no cost or construction time has been determined for this project. Infantry Road and Follow Me Trail. The design and environmental work are nearly complete for the development of a new 2-lane roadway that will connect South Lumpkin Boulevard with Fort Benning Boulevard near the National Infantry Museum. Also, the Follow Me Trail that now runs from Casita Road to Matheson Road will be extended down to the museum and allow for direct access to the Columbus Riverwalk. The $1.6 million project will provide direct access to Fort Benning from South Columbus without citizens having to cut through the museum's parking lot and thus eliminating the potential for accidents and damage to the museum's property. The project is scheduled for construction in 2021. Mott's Green. The reworking of a small portion of the Columbus Riverwalk that lies directly behind Total Systems and is adjacent to the 14th Street pedestrian bridge is an area known as Mott's Green. This historic site, named after a former Columbus mayor whose home once stood in this area, consists today of historic markers and monuments that are currently in need of refurbishing. Further, much of the landscaping and beautification that was installed in the 1990s requires replacement and rework. Under this project, the last area of the Columbus Riverwalk to be redeveloped will be improved with new landscaping, a realignment of the Riverwalk as it comes under the 14th Street pedestrian bridge, historical markers that highlight the importance of the river to the community, and better access to a view of the river itself. This $1.1 million project will also provide a public space for festivals, concerts, and other social gatherings. The project is expected to be complete by the spring of 2021. 2 new roundabouts have been constructed and completed in Columbus over the last year. The first is the River Road Roundabout, which is a new 5-leg roundabout constructed to replace the existing signalized intersection at River Road and Bradley Park Drive. The project was developed to help improve traffic flow and safety. It included new sidewalks, landscaping, signage, striping, and stormwater infrastructure. The total cost for the project was $4.7 million. Another roundabout was constructed at the intersections of Fort Benning Road, Concita Road, and Brennan Road. This was also a 5-leg roundabout that was constructed to replace the existing signalized intersections in this area. The project required a realignment of Brennan Road and Califon Creek, as well as the replacement of the existing box culvert under Concita Road. A new multi-use trail and landscaping were also included in this $5.2 million project. Phase 2 of this project remains under construction and consists of streetscapes along Fort Benning Road from the new roundabout to Shelby Street. Once completed, the entire Fort Benning Road corridor will have a 10-foot multi-use trail, new sidewalks, curb and gutter, asphalt paving, and landscaping. The cost for this Phase 2 is approximately $4.3 million and is estimated for completion in January of 2021. Diverging Diamond Interchange at Bradley Park Drive and J.R. Allen Parkway. A reworking of the existing interchange at Bradley Park Drive and J.R. Allen Parkway is currently under development to help eliminate accidents due to the current design of this interchange. The interchange has experienced at least 1 fatality within the last 5 years. The new design calls for the use of a diverging diamond interchange that will improve the carrying capacity while providing safer travel on and off surrounding roadways. The cost for this Georgia Department of Transportation project has been estimated at $7 million. The project is projected to begin construction in 2024. The Georgia Department of Transportation has recently installed 5 new message boards along the J.R. Allen Parkway from the state line to Flat Rock Road on the north side of Beaver Run Road. The purpose of the signage is to inform motorists of any potential issues or problems ahead as they travel. This is particularly important for those traveling west, where problems have occurred due to sunsets that may temporarily blind a driver or to accidents that have occurred in Phoenix City. The project will provide needed information to travelers to ensure their safety while providing better travel times on this highway. So there you have it. And this is just a small sampling of some of the great projects coming to our community in the near future. In the next 3 to 5 years, we will see over $200 million invested in new roads and infrastructure, plus potential enhancements to major roadways such as 2nd Avenue and Jerry Island Parkway. We'll have seen the new development of new hotels and restaurants valued well over another $200 million, with projected revenue of over $110 million over the next 20 years, and a new medical school with initial enrollment of 240 students that will serve not only Columbus, but our region and our world. And this is only the beginning. Today, Columbus stands on the threshold of becoming the vibrant community we all knew it could be. The investments that are made today will no doubt pay huge dividends for us all in the future. For Columbus is a city on the move.
So
Okay.
again, thank you to our CCG TV team and Rick Jones, our planning director, for putting that video together. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
And Councilor Woodson, I believe you had your hand up earlier, and I didn't see it. Was there a question from you?
No, I was just trying to let you know that I was present because
Okay,
you
I'm sorry.
missed
I'm
me.
sorry.
That's all that was.
I'm
And I
sorry.
didn't know it worked. I'm playing with this technology as we go.
Okay, that's okay.
Thank
So,
you.
so members of the delegation or council members, any questions of Deputy City Manager Hodge? We thought that since we were doing this virtually, we would do a video that would show you all of the great work that's going on in and around Columbus. And you heard at the end of the video, $200 million in roads, infrastructure, and enhancement of other roads. There's a lot more work coming in the near future. And so Columbus is truly a city on the move, but we want to answer any questions that you have about what you've seen in the video. Are there any questions?
Mr. City Manager, this is
Sure.
Calvin. This is Representative Smurry. I tell you what, those, well, first of all, let me congratulate you on behalf of the entire delegation for that, your remarks and being recognized as a city operationally and being ranked that high in the nation. That's commendable, and that's a testament to the mayor and you and all of the administration there and your team that's working for the city. So congratulations to you as city manager and to your entire team and to the mayor and the city council for your stewardship and to all the others that are working in that regard. So congratulations.
Thank you.
But the two videos were just exceptional, and they were just, I mean, is there any way for you to send those to me and I can get them to the delegation and send it to all of us? Those was just
Absolutely.
remarkable. I like to slow it down and just continue to digest that, if you will. That would, could we get that done? I mean,
Absolutely. We'll get that, you guys. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
One question regarding that video, if I may, Mr. City Manager.
Sure.
In there, I thought I heard the narrator allude to the fact about that interchange or that entree right there by Mount Pilgrim. I'm sorry, Reverend Harris's former church on Casita.
Mount Pilgrim. Yes.
Yeah, can you? That is something in stone that we've concluded that is we've agreed on some changes or movement in that, because I know we had some discussions on that in another venue. I just don't want to bog it down, but I want to get some clarity on that if I could. I didn't quite understand whether we were saying it was done or we were proposing or it was on a concept mode.
Well, it's still in the works, and I can tell you we've got positive movement. We are working very closely with Reverend Stallion and the Mount Pilgrim Baptist Church leadership and their congregation. Georgia DOT back in September, on September 22nd, asked us to, as the city of Columbus, to take over the negotiations to try and work through that situation. And we have been working with the leadership, the church, Reverend Stallion, since that time. And we think we are in a good spot at this point. In fact, we communicate on a very regular basis with Reverend Stallion. And I can tell you that we anticipate that we are going to be talking to City Council at the November 10th meeting to share with them where we are in that negotiation. But I can tell you we are in a good spot with that.
Okay. Well, I just want to offer my deep appreciation to you and some members of the council for lending an ear, Reverend Stallion and that group out there, and the church members. You're doing a great job in the negotiating efforts, and I just want to commend you for it. Our delegation and met with them and yourself on a couple of occasions. So I just want to thank you for giving that some serious attention, and hopefully we move forward in a positive way for both sides.
Sure. And we know that if we can get that interchange at Casita Road and I-185, it's going to open up that entire area for further economic development opportunities, and it's going to better serve the tremendous investment that the school district, and I know Dr. David Lewis is in this meeting as well with us, but it's going to open up access to the new Spencer High School and the investment we've made in the roundabout that you saw in the video at Fort Benning, Casita Road, but it is really going to open up that area if we're able to bring this to fruition, and we're optimistic we will.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. City Manager,
Yes,
I'd like to ask Representative Smith if this was covered in the video. I didn't hear it. And the reason I'm asking you is because of the service that you did to this community, bringing Mercer Medical here. Is there a completion date set for that complex?
From what I understand, it should be completed early spring of 22. So we're only looking at a little over a year.
So
maybe a year and a half.
that's the building. Is that having the
Yes, ma'am.
students there?
That's the students will start at that time. Now we already have some 3rd and 4th year students here already, but as of early spring, the building will be open for students. Now it'll take 2 or 3 years to get the full contingent of students because, like I said, we graduating 60 a year. So once we get that taken care of, as far as building a facility, then it takes time to build. Plus, the faculty will also be doing research, and so it'll be just a complete medical school. And because of its location there, it may be the most beautiful medical school in the country.
Well, I do. I know that everybody on this call knows the influence that you personally had in getting that facility here, but just want to say thank you for that. And I'm ready for those folks to come on in. Let's get them going. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. There was an awful lot of people involved in that project. We worked on it a little over 10 years. So, I've gotten a lot of credit, but I think there's a whole lot of people who deserve as much or if not more credit than I do on that particular project. It has been an interesting process, and that's the way most legislation and most big projects are. But it's going to be a big deal for Columbus, because I think if you remember reading in the paper shortly thereafter, I think Jimmy Yancey and also maybe Matt Swift concurred that with the new med school, it may be the largest economic impact in Columbus since Pratt Whitney. So that's big.
Yes.
And in no small part to your efforts. Thanks,
Well, thank you,
Representative Smith.
Yes.
Good
And
point.
yes, and that was mentioned in the video. That's an awesome project, and we're excited about it and can't wait for it to be fully constructed and open, Representative Smith. So thank you for all your hard work.
Well, you're quite welcome.
Yeah. Any other questions about quality of life infrastructure, whether it was in the video or not, from members of the delegation or from members of City Council?
City Councilor Bruce Huff here. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I'd like to thank you, Mr. City Manager, and your staff and Planning Department and all of the state delegation that worked with me in trying to negotiate with Mount Pilgrim to take time out of their schedule for us to get to this point that we're moving in a positive fashion. So I'd just like to say thank you, because it's always a team of people involved.
Sure.
And it's been fascinating, for me to be involved in such a huge project and to understand all the different entities that it takes to get it done. So thank you to you all.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Again, I want to thank school board member Dr. David Lewis for being in the meeting with us, and we'll introduce some others as we see that they're in the meeting. But we're going to move on to the legislative agenda. We have 16 items on our legislative agenda. And the way this works, we ask our council members for items that they would like to see on the legislative agenda. They'll give those to us and we compile them. And we will go to council and ask them to vote on each and every item on the legislative agenda prior to having this meeting, the Hometown Connection with the legislative delegation. And after council will have passed them and we have the Hometown Connection meeting, we go through them. We ask for discussion on each item between the mayor and council and the delegation. And at that point, once we've gone through them, we will formally forward these to the members of the delegation for consideration as you start the next session of the Georgia General Assembly in January. And some of these are carryover from prior years and where no action has been taken, but they're still important to the members of council and to the citizens of Columbus. And so they are back on the agenda. And so the first item, and I'd ask that you, let's talk about this. Let's have some dialogue back and forth, some discussion, and so that we can do some clarification if that's necessary. But we do want you to discuss each item as I present it to you. And then we will hear from the President and CEO of the Columbus Convention Visitors Bureau to see if they've got items. And then if we've got any comments at that point that the school district want to make at this meeting, I think they have their own meeting, then we would invite David Lewis to have any comments. But the first item is an item that has been presented to you before. It's for nonpartisan primary ballots for all local elected officials, including constitutional officers. And so the mayor and council in this resolution are requesting to amend state law to provide that all local elected officials, including constitutional officers, be elected on nonpartisan primary ballots. Now, this came to us this year from Councilor John House, and it is a carryover from previous year. And so are there any questions or discussion on nonpartisan primary ballots for all local elected officials, including constitutional officers? Any member of the delegation or council members have any questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to number 2. The second item is County Special Local Option Sales Tax Maintenance Reserve. This is also a carryover from a previous year. And our council members, the mayor and council, are asking you, the delegation, to consider amendments to the county special purpose local option sales tax imposed by Part 1, Article 3 of Chapter 8. And you know what I'm referring to, but to allow consolidated governments to expend up to 5% of the tax levied to be spent for future maintenance of the capital outlay projects approved by the referendum levying the tax. This comes from Councilor John House, and it is a carryover from a previous year. Are there any questions or discussion on the county special local option sales tax maintenance reserve? Any questions?
One thing, Mr. City Manager, this is Calvin.
Sure.
When we took that bill last year, and I took the information that was given to me, and General Counsel is drafting us something, but that's going to be a general bill. It's nothing that we can do locally. They told us that, so that's something that we're going to have to do in collaboration with others. So we'll be back in touch with you, Mayor Clifton Fay, as we get that drafted and for introduction.
Yeah, and you said it's going to be a general bill, but when we did the other local option sales tax, we actually did it for consolidated governments. And so when you say a general bill, is that going to be general in terms of all 159 counties, or can it be just for consolidated governments?
And that's what we're going to have to work out. The reason that he said it's general because it's dealing with a code section, and I mean, unless there's a carve out, it's part of the annotated code. So, but there have been some carve outs that we made for only consolidated government. If we do that, then we'd have to team up with all the consolidated government, as you know, and do that as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I'm note of that.
Sure.
Mr. Smyrie, this is Judy Thomas. I have a question for you on that piece of it. As you have explained, the legislative analyst said it had to apply to all counties. Can you tell me why a county would be opposed to that? I know the maintenance piece of it is something that we struggle with all the time, and I would think that would be the same in any entity in the state that gets to do a special purpose local option sales tax. And I'm just wondering what kind of objection might you run into?
Well, we didn't when we first got it, because what we do as a delegation, we look at all the bills and I take them to the general counsel, and then they determine whether the general bills are local bills. And if it's a local bill, then we decide within the delegation one way or the other. When they are general bills, we go back to the general counsel and they draft it, and we talk to the people with jurisdiction of those respective committees, and then that determines. So when we started to do this, the clock got us, and this was a very unusual year for us. We don't have a good feel on this, because when the session started, and then we adjourned for 7 months, went back in June. So this was a kind of unusual year to take a temperature on something, but we'll get back early with you on this as regards. But I agree with you. It seems like a carve out, and it's not mandatory, it's sort of permissive. But that's something that we'll take a look at.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question.
I'm sorry, Representative. Okay.
This is Debbie Buckner. I was just going to say, as a follow-up to Ms. Thomas's question, is some people actually wanted different percentages, and so that was a little bit of the discussion that came about. How much do we need for maintenance? Is 5% enough, or do we need to do up to potentially a different number?
Okay. Representative Carolyn Hughley, I believe you've got your hand up. You're muted, Representative Hughley. You're muted. Okay. Now you muted yourself back. Okay,
Be careful, Isaiah.
I know.
Okay.
Sure, go ahead. You're muted. You were unmuted, then you muted back.
Okay.
Representative
Is
Hughley.
that it?
That's it.
Can you hear me now?
I
Okay,
can.
I'm sorry about that. I had my hand raised on the first question.
Sure.
And
We can go back to that one. Go back to number 1.
okay, number 1, I just I can't let us pass number 1 because I've been contacted by constituents who are concerned about this request. And I just want to make everyone aware that there are constituents who are concerned that we're being asked for this, and there are already objections. So I just want the council members to know that our collective constituents are not all in agreement with that particular request.
Right, and I see Representative Richard Smith with his hand up.
Yes, Senator Manager, got a question. You talked about it before you started listing the parts of the legislative agenda. Have these been voted on yet by City Council?
They have. Yes, sir. They've all been approved by City Council.
Okay. When each one comes, like number 1, could you give me give us the actual vote count on those?
We can, and I don't think the clerk is on, but Chelsea Johnson, you're on. I don't know. I believe that was unanimous.
Okay. All right. What I'm looking for is something for each one, so I'll know how to count.
When we send you the resolution, we're going to send you the actual resolution, and it will list all of the city councilors and how they voted.
Okay.
Mr. City Manager.
Yes, sir.
Text Ms. Johnson, and of course, because y'all had additional agenda items, all the resolutions she texted me back were not ready. But that when she gets all the resolution with the actual voting, with the description of the resolution and with every member with every vote on it, she's gonna get those to us, and as she has done in the past, we always get with each resolution. Each agenda item comes with a resolution and how each member of the council voted. So we should be getting that shortly. I don't know whether she was on the call or not.
Yeah, that is correct. You will get individual resolutions for each of these legislative agenda items.
And I just emailed all the members of the delegation because in our package that we got in the book, there were 10 items, but in all actuality, there's 16. So I just emailed the additional items to all the members of the delegation.
That is correct, Mr. Dean. Yes. So we're going to go back to number 3. Military retiree state tax exemption. The council, mayor and council are requesting the legislative delegation support efforts to exempt military retiree pay from state income tax in order to attract military retirees to our city, as recommended by the Greater Columbus, Georgia Chamber of Commerce. This comes from Councilor John House as well, and this is a carryover from a previous year. Any questions on military retiree state tax exemption?
Representative Smith or Senator Harbison, you want to say anything on that?
Yes.
Hands are up. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The truth of the matter is that is something that I know we've been working on for at least a decade, from the House side, from the Senate side, from my perspective, from Chairman Richard Smith's perspective, and his leadership and my leadership, and Representative Smyre, Representative Hughley, Representative Buckner. All of us have been on that. Everybody's on board with that. And I think what we're looking for is the timing, the economic impact, and how to deal with that. And nobody is opposed to it. It's just a matter of us finding the right revenue sources in order to get it started again. Because as you remember, or may not, is that we had it before, but because it was the military, the non-military workers in the federal sector went sued and got themselves included, and we had to get away with it. They do away with it because it was too expensive. There is another piece that I'm working on this year in addition to that, and that is trying to those lottery games that you watch in the COAM machines and all of that, that is going to come into play big time. I think we're from the governor's office all the way down involved in it. And I think we're going to do something very good for our veterans in this state. And you're going to be very much surprised. I don't want to, crow about it too much because, you got to make sure you got all your ducks lined up and everybody's got the proper credit. But I think we're going to do it this year. And as I said earlier, we're going to make sure we keep working. Please understand, it takes time on this, but I believe we're going to cross the finish line this time and get it done as it relates to the exemption for the military pay. Sooner or later, we're going to pass it because the desire is there. It's just a matter of us meeting the practicality with our desire.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. Representative Smith, did you have a comment on that one?
Well, I know, like Senator Harbison talked about, we've been working on this thing for several years, and I think I know at least 15. So, but always it comes back to money. The last time I heard the projected cost for this particular exemption was about $125 million. And that's been 3 or 4 years ago. So, it always reverts back to money. And like the senator talked about, the court said we cannot cherry pick government employees to give tax breaks to. So if you give it to one, you got to give it to all. So we're going to have to do something. Now, I know some other states have done it, but their federal employees hadn't sued like ours did. So, that's one of the issues that we're looking at, trying to get around that because, until you do, then you have to give a tax exemption for TSA workers or any federal employee versus just the military.
Right.
So we've got Councilor Judy Thomas and Councilor Mimi Woodson in that order. Did you want to come in or make some observation?
I had a question, Mr. City Manager, of either Representative Smith or whomever. We are talking only about the military retiree pay. Is that correct? That's not if a retiree goes to work at Publix. They still are taxed on that salary, but
Yes,
not
ma'am.
on their retirement salary.
Only thing we're looking at is the military retirement part. If they retire at whatever point they retire and whatever grade they retire at, and they get another job, the new job has absolutely nothing to do with this. It only has to deal with the military part of their income.
Thank you.
Ditto. Absolutely.
Okay, Councilor Woodson.
Yes, Judy actually asked part of my question, but my second question was, Representative Smith, you mentioned that you looked at some other communities. What do you recall what type of revenues they used? What did they use to offset this?
I don't know, because when this occurred a few years ago, actually before I got in the legislature, we did this, but then the other federal employees sued, took it to court, and the judge said, nope, you cannot cherry pick one federal agency and exclude the others. So I think South Carolina does it. I think Alabama does it. But it's just a matter of getting around that so that we can give these the military their just due.
Right.
Okay. I think if we did a little bit more education to the citizens, maybe we won't get so much controversy on it because the important is that these individuals serve their country. And in order for us to recruit more retirees to our community, to better our community, we need to do something for them. A lot of the retirees choose to live in Columbus, but then after they get taxed so much, they decide to go elsewhere. We would like to keep them here since we are the second largest military installation in the world.
Oh, I agree 100%. But when you hear that the other federal agencies took it to court, then there's a little difference of opinion out there. Because I had a teacher call me from Noonan, I think it was, and said, "Well, if you do that for the military, why not do it for me?" So, and I finally told her, said, "Well, you haven't been shot at." So there's a big difference between what the military is confronting every day versus a lot of these other federal agencies.
Okay. I believe those are all of the hands that were up on that particular one. So we're going to go on to Interstate 14. And the mayor and council, we're asking that the delegation advocate support to include specific funding in state budget for Interstate 14 as a DOT project. And that is the extension of I-14 to and through Columbus, that you take the appropriate legislative action concerning this extension, this highway extension. And this comes from Councilor John House. I know that there's a young millennia who is an advocate for this project, and he's pursuing it, and the council members have voted, and I believe it was unanimous, asking that the delegation advocate or support this project as it could come up during times in the state legislature. Any questions on that? The next one, I've got number 5. John House, Councilor House, you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. City Manager. I just wanted to add, I mean, you're correct about Frank Lumpkin continuing to push this. And recently, the Georgia DOT commissioner actually signed a letter of support that went up to the U.S. Senate, as I recall. But our concern is that if we don't continue to push this, and somehow put some money to at least relooking the plan, the route where it would go, that eventually it will just fall by the wayside, because it's not really at this point listed as a Georgia DOT project. I mean, so if we don't get some kind of push from somebody to move forward, to recheck the route and so forth, that the whole idea may die. And that's why I added it, and it was a carryover from previous. And certainly those of us that have supported it very much appreciate the efforts that have been done so far and the support that's been provided by the General Assembly.
Okay.
If I may, the city manager, I just want to make sure that I spread some thanks to the General Assembly, the Senate and the House for passing my bill that I introduced for Mr. Lumpkin, so it could go up to the General Assembly, an urging resolution that was really well vetted. People, you would be surprised about the amount of people who have concern about earmarking funding for this particular roadway. People talk about how that could impact the budget, and they don't want to be tied to it, and that's why they didn't adopt all the language in there, because it would earmark some of the money from the DOT to a specific project in the future, but they're willing to listen to it, they're willing to do it. And it was some effort to get it through, because people looked at it, with a cautious eye. But they passed it, and we got it out and got it up there. So I just want to commend young Frank Lumpkin for doing an outstanding work, not only here in Georgia, but in Alabama and other parts as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5, theatrical performance. And so the city is requesting the local delegation support House Bill 347 or similar legislation to amend Georgia law so as to shorten the original performance period for the current 12 months, from the current 12 months to 18 weeks. Reduce the spending threshold from $500,000 to $100,000 in the aggregate during a taxable year, and further clarify parameters that define Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties in that legislation so as to provide additional allowance for an applicable incentive. And Councilor Thomas has been an advocate for this, and I don't see your hand raised, Councilor Thomas, so I'm going to ask you to comment on this one.
Well, I think this is one that most of the delegation is familiar with. It's been on the agenda for a year or so. What it does is it gives these theater production companies similar tax cuts and benefits as movie production companies receive. And this would not just be at the River Center, even though the River Center had 2 of these last year. This would be, of course, statewide. And so I think places like the Fox Theater and some of the others around the state are also looking at this. And I know that Peter Bowden was on the call, and he's familiar with this piece also. But you guys know this came to you last year. We did have a piece of legislation, and I think like some of the other legislation we've had here, time just ran out, and we didn't get it completely finished. But whatever we can do to help that, and Peter, I don't know if you have any comment that you need to make or not, but you guys know what we're talking about, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Thomas. So we're going to move on to reciprocal sovereign immunity. The city is requesting that the delegation encourage all possible legislative actions, which would encourage negotiations with Alabama and other neighboring states to provide that the laws of each state would be amended to provide for reciprocal sovereign immunity so that local governmental officials carrying out duties and operating vehicles in neighboring states would have the same or similar sovereign immunity protections that they have under Georgia law. And this comes from Councilor John House as well. Any questions or discussion on that, on number 6?
Mr. City Manager, this is John House. I had my hand up on this one because this came out of the car take-home policy discussions, in that we were not able to grant car take-home allowance to allow somebody to take a government car home if they lived in Alabama, because we were concerned about not having the sovereign immunity protection if somebody had an accident in Alabama. And the issue got down, it appeared that some sort of legislative action might be needed to allow that reciprocity to occur across state lines, and it really requires action from Alabama as well. And so this was just a way to try to start that discussion to get some help so that if we want to extend the right to take a car home to Alabama, we can, or to take any vehicle into Alabama without suffering the potential risk from that lack of sovereign immunity.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Number 7, sales tax accountability and transparency user safeguard. And some know this as point of sales data. And I'll tell you up front that there's been a lot of good progress made regarding release of information to cities and counties, work that has been done by GMA and ACCG. Councilor or Mayor Pro Tem Gary Allen asked that we bring this back because we think the DOR can go a little bit further, Department of Revenue, with providing information to cities and counties. And so the city is requesting that the delegation introduce legislation amending the law to allow Georgia cities access to tax information as needed when local government governing authorities, finance or tax officials have need of said tax information in the discharge of their official duties. And so this is basically point of sales data and trying to go a step further than what the state has gone. And so we're asking your support on that. Number 8, hospice administrators. The council is supporting any legislation to amend or remove requirements for the hiring of hospice administrators in compliance with state of Georgia hospice rules version 4.00, section 0802 and other sections. But the requirement to be a healthcare professional or health service administrator is very limited in the choice that hospices have when hiring administrators. There are many qualified candidates who have backgrounds that would suit them to successfully lead a hospice, some in other areas of healthcare and some in completely different fields. Leadership qualities can be found in many areas, and this requirement excludes qualified candidates. This comes from Councilor Pop Barnes. It's a carryover from a previous year, and you know he is a practicing nurse, and he has asked that the state, that delegation, further consider this matter. Any questions on that? Next, number 9, open meetings for local governments via telephonic and other electronic means. I know that you know that we're dealing with COVID-19, and we don't know how long it's going to last, but the city is requesting that the legislative delegation introduce legislation to amend Georgia Open Meetings Act to allow local governmental entities to hold public meetings via teleconference or other digital means on the same basis as state agencies. And this is requested by Councilor Charmaine Crabb. And I believe the state is authorized to do some of this, but local governments are not. And we're asking for that same right. And we will entertain discussion on this if there's discussion at this time. Okay, hearing none and seeing no hands, we will move on to the next item, casino gaming referendum. We had this on the last 2 years, and the city is requesting the delegation introduce or support legislation to authorize a statewide referendum for a constitutional amendment to allow Georgia citizens to vote as to whether casino gaming should be allowed in Georgia for the purpose of Hope Scholarship funding. Further, if any such constitutional amendment is adopted, the council is requesting a local referendum be established for approval or rejection of any such casino gaming in Muskogee County. And this is from Councilor Mimi Woodson. It's a carryover from a previous year. Any questions about item number 10? Item number 11, small business relief. The city is requesting the delegation introduce legislation to study and implement ways that programs of temporary loan deferment and forbearance can be implemented in Georgia to provide temporary relief to small businesses facing disruption, closure, foreclosure, or bankruptcy as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. We're asking your support on that piece for small business relief. Any questions on that? Seeing none. Item number 12, preemption of regulation of pet sales by local governments. The city council is requesting that the delegation oppose any legislation which would preempt local governments from regulating the sales of animals to be kept as pets. And so that's item number 12. Any questions on item number 12? Seeing none, item number 13, residential drug abuse treatment centers, prompt notification of local authorities upon licensing. And so the city council is requesting that the delegation introduce statewide legislation that will require prompt notification of county and city police and fire departments, licensing departments, and planning and zoning departments upon licensing or licensing changes of residential care centers as defined and used in the item below, and that's defined in section OCGA section 2653. That is item number 13. So it would require prompt notification of local authority upon licensing. And then the next one is public utilities and public water system reservoirs, requesting the following actions of the delegations so as to better protect public water system reservoirs such as Lake Oliver in Columbus, Georgia. Consider amendments to or removal of exemptions to the Erosion and Sedimentation Act of 1975 for certain public utilities and public water system reservoirs. Request the General Assembly and U.S. Corps of Engineers perform additional environmental studies at appropriate intervals to evaluate water flows, water quality, siltation, sedimentation buildup on riverbanks in the Chattahoochee River above Columbus. Explore options whereby the state can provide funding necessary for dredging of such local public waterways to mitigate and restore siltation and sedimentation damage. This comes from Councilor Glenn Davis. And then items 15 and 16 have to do with personal care homes. It's prompt notification of local authority upon licensing. And this may be a duplication, but respectfully request that the local legislation introduce statewide legislation that require prompt notification of county and city police and fire departments. I believe we already covered that one, and I think that's a duplicate. But the final one is minimum staffing requirements in personal care homes. The city government is requesting the delegation introduce statewide legislation that will require minimum staffing of two trained minimum staffing of 2 trained supervisors or managers between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. at child care institutions, foster care homes, and personal care homes. We're also requesting that the delegation, city attorney.
Just wanted to comment. These are related, but they're all different types of institutions. The personal care homes, the foster care, and then the other one was the residential treatment. That's why there were 3 separate ones.
Okay, got you.
Okay, thanks.
And so the final one is minimum staffing requirement, 6 o'clock p.m. to 6 a.m. Those are the items on the legislative agenda, and we've allowed you to ask questions along the way, but are there any questions that on any of those that we need to go back to at this time? If not, Peter Boughton is in the meeting, President and CEO of Columbus Convention and Visitors Bureau. Mr. Boughton, did you have something to present at this time?
Yes, sir, Mr. City Manager.
I'll wait on mine.
Again, we want to also thank you all for your leadership over the past years in regards to all the work that you do. And we do have 3, the hospitality industry here in Columbus does have 3 points that we would ask that you all help us consider. These are things that we've talked about in the past with a few additions to that. The first one is the protection of Georgia's lodging and taxes and redirection. And primarily, the first bullet point on that is to maintain the intended purpose and use of the hotel motel tax for the promotion of trade shows, conventions, and tourism. The new part of that is that we, as the industry realizes that short-term vacation rentals have become an important option for travelers choosing Georgia, and that short-term rentals have grown into a significant option as part of the total tourism package. We also recognize that there's an economic benefit to homeowners and local businesses and destination marketing organizations around the state because of this new industry. But we also believe that there needs to be a level playing field across all visitor accommodations, and that the communities throughout Georgia, including obviously Columbus, benefit from the entire lodging industry to collect and remit appropriate fees and taxes. In this edition, we're talking about the careful analysis of the potential benefits and the appropriate collection of those and remittance of those taxes and fees make clear that the best direction for Georgia communities. Again, this is not to disrupt those owners of short-term rentals, the Airbnbs or the VRBOs, but we're asking that this be considered as leveling that playing field to protect primarily the investments, the millions of dollars the hotel developers have made in all of our communities, including Columbus, who recently we have 3 new projects underway. The second point is to increase Georgia's investment in tourism marketing. The first bullet point under that is that the state's tourism marketing budget is last compared to its competition in the Southeast. And the lack of adequate funding is missed economic opportunity for the state that would benefit all communities throughout Georgia, including Columbus. And that the money spent by tourists in Columbus and in Georgia, especially those from out of state, provides a substantial return on investment in form of lodging taxes, sales taxes, and a state hotel motel $5 per night fee. And as we all try to move through the pandemic and the economic recovery that's necessary, I think it's important that we look at every opportunity to capture those revenues where possible to grow our business. And then the final point is to oppose, and this is a repeat from previous years, to oppose any legislation that allows discrimination. And this covers a number of businesses, not just hospitality, but film and so forth. And in Georgia, we should never discriminate for any reason. Georgia's economy outpaces neighboring states because the leadership, such as you all on the call, have adopted fundamental principles that do not allow for discrimination. Any form of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, also known as RFRA, is not necessary because the practice of religion is already protected. RFRA simply discriminates. Ms. City Manager, that's all that we have that we'd like to present this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And so, Mayor and members of the delegation, we have Dr. Beverly Townsend also in the meeting. And Dr. Townsend, I don't know if you have any comments, if you want to say hello, if you have something you want to present, but I'll yield to you at this time.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't really have anything to present. I just want to say thank everyone for the opportunity to be a part of this again, this organization again. I don't have any light in here.
But as you know, Dr. Townsend is over the Department of Public Health.
Yes, I'm the Commissioner of Health for Columbus, actually. And actually, we appreciate the opportunity to provide work for you all to work with us diligently with the COVID testing and everything, where we provided free testing for our areas as part of public health. We don't have anything specific to add today, but I just want to say I thank the delegation. One of the things that the mayor said in the beginning, this is one of the best delegations that I've seen that work together, certainly with our communities and with public health across the entire state. So I really do appreciate the opportunity to serve in this capacity for everything you do. So I don't have anything specific to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Townsend. And so we have Mr. Clint Mueller on from Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. We have Tom Gill on from Georgia Municipal Association. Mr. Mueller, do you have any comments at this time? Thank you for being with us today. Mr. Mueller.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay,
as I'm working off my cell phone signal, be kind of not sure how well y'all can hear me.
Yeah, you're breaking up some, but go ahead.
Well, we did publish our legislative agenda. You can find it on ACCG's website, and we've got a number of items. Some of our priorities this year are making some reforms to some of the election laws. We also want to make some reforms to reimbursement for EMS services. And the final priority for us was rural broadband, doing several initiatives to fund grants to promote more rural broadband across the state. So those are some of the top priorities for ACCG this coming session.
Okay, thank you, sir. And Tom Gale, Georgia Municipal Association, let us hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I would agree with Mayor Henderson, what he said at the beginning. This delegation, I've seen delegations all over the state. This delegation really works well together, and I think a lot of it is due to the longevity. You all are and your constituents are smart to continue to send the likes of Dean Smyrie and others to the state capitol. Even Senator Robertson, who is relatively new considering the experience that the delegation has, even Senator Robertson is making an incredible positive impact for the community. We've got a number of policies at GMA. We're going to be working with you all, some of which are in your legislative platform, and we look forward to working with ACCG to push those jointly. I would say that overarching, we think that many of the most important decisions should be made at the local level rather than in Atlanta. And so that's one of the overarching principles that we'll maintain as we represent Columbus and all of the other local governments in the state of Georgia. So thank you for having this 13th annual Hometown Connection.
Thank you, sir. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I am going to turn it over to Dean Smyrie, and then Mayor, I would ask you after Dean Smyrie that you would have the final remarks. And so Dean Smyrie and members of the delegation, whoever want to have any comments. So Dean Smyrie.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. What a great meeting and what a great way to kick off as we prepare for the 2021 legislative session. A couple of things real quickly before I, open it up to the members of the delegation. The information that Peter Bowden gave us, in what form is that coming to us? Is that coming in a proposal legislatively? Peter, if you can get with us and see what form those 3 items that you gave to us and how you'd like for us to proceed. And then our kudos to Beverly Townsend, Mr. City Manager, and the mayor, and she's just done an exemplary job in doing this COVID-19 and this pandemic. And we give kudos to her, our delegation that worked with her during this period, and we give her our continued thanks. And we always look forward to working with Clint and Tom from ACCG and from the GMA perspective. So we've got the entire agenda, Mr. City Manager, and Clifton Fay, I've emailed him, and he and I are going to have a discussion afterwards so that we can line up our legal counsel as it relates to all of these various issues, and then get with the delegation, and then look forward to the 2021 legislative session. A lot of the things are carryovers. I think that I've identified that there are 6 that are carryover, and that there are 2 that are relatively new to us. So we're going to be digesting those. And again, as chair of the delegation, I look forward to working with our legislative team and with our delegation as we prepare for the 2021 session. So, Mr. City Attorney, be in touch, and Mr. Mayor and City Manager, thank you all. And Mr. City Manager, I want to tell you something. Your staff, my hats off to them. They have done great work. And Ms. Johnson, Tisha Johnson, and then following up from Crystal Farley, they have just done, on behalf of the city, they are doing an outstanding job. And I just wanted to say that publicly. And I've been working with them now for several weeks on putting this meeting together, and it's going very, very well. So, and the members of the delegation, senators, anything, Randy or Ed?
Senator Harbison, you're muted.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry, I was muted. Yes. I'm sorry if you wanted me to say something. I'm sorry. I was muted and doing something else. I had dog duties to do as well. But just let me thank you for a very thorough program that you put together, Mr. City Manager. And we were always on task about the things that you guys at the City Council lay out for us to take a look at and try to push through the General Assembly, which is not always easy, but we give it the yeoman's task. We work hard. I want to say especially to my colleague in the Senate with me, Senator Robinson, we work well together. We always have good friends, and then we work together on the policies in which positively affect our community. Members of the General Assembly House, thank you for being such a great delegation. Members of the City Council, just outstanding. I appreciate everything you do. I don't always say, but I appreciate what you do, and I know what you go through, especially at the local level, the members of the council, the city manager, and others who support you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody from the House? Richard Smith, Carolyn Hughley, Buckner. I think everybody's on the House side is there. I don't think Vance is on. Anything to follow up on from the House side? Anybody?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say that I'm very pleased to be here today and to live in the 17th best run city in America. And it's our pleasure to represent Columbus, Georgia in the Georgia House of Representatives. And we look forward to tackling the legislative agenda that we've been given today. Thank you.
I tell you what, Isaiah, I want you to put that smile on your face again, Isaiah. I want when she was talking, he would just smile. Chairman Smith, anything? Chairman Smith, Debbie, is that it for the delegation? All right. Isaiah, Mr. City Manager, thank you very, very much. And I guess the mayor is coming up.
Yes. All right. Let me just pause. I think Councilor Thomas and the city attorney both have their hands up. Okay. So, Councilor Thomas. Councilor Thomas, you're on mute. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just want to say to Senator Harbison that I'm missing lunch today too. So when we get to the point where we can get together, let's do that. Even if we don't have a legislative agenda to deal with, let's just get together and have lunch, Mr. Mayor. I enjoy the conversation with our delegation. And I think, Thomas, that's one of the reasons why we work so well together, is that we do get together and we talk and we're doing what's needed for the people in Columbus. So, Senator Harbison, are you up for that?
Anytime, my friend, anytime.
Yes.
Thank you.
City Attorney, did you have something?
Yeah, just one more comment before we leave. We wanted to thank the delegation for what they do every year. If y'all remember back before the COVID hit, the delegation got our bill passed to remove the title restrictions on the government center and the courthouse square. And just this week, we have been in touch with Legislative Counsel, Mr. Paul Higbee, and gotten him the legal description that he needs for a quitclaim deed that'll be coming later from the state. But thank y'all for doing that. It seems like a long time ago before COVID hit, but and then Representative Smyre, we'll listen out for you. Any help that y'all need on these items, we'll be glad to work with you. And Clint and Tom, thank y'all as usual.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, we're going to turn the floor over to you.
Well, I'll be brief. I'll end like we began, and that's by thanking all y'all for what you do every day. I do also want to thank Dr. Townsend, as well as ACCG and GMA for being such incredible resources as we've all dealt with this pandemic. I don't know that we would have been able to address it nearly as well as we have without all of your combined assistance. And I want to go back to something that Tom mentioned as well, and I know ACCG supports as well. And thank y'all for championing the home rule. I know that for the most part, this delegation has done a great job of trying to do their best to see that the decisions that impact local governments are made by local government. And we thank y'all so much for your confidence in us and for your partnership. And I do want to make reference to the city manager's staff. Again, they have put together an incredible resource guide for you. You should have received it. And it's got some outstanding information that we hope you'll be able to refer to if you have need of any additional information about what's going on in Columbus. And as usual, even in the midst of a pandemic, there is a lot going on in Columbus. And a lot of that, again, is directly the result of your efforts at the state level on our behalf. So thank you so much for joining us. We thank the folks that are tuning in through CCG TV, who have also been a part of their government, both local and state. And with that, we'll thank you and tell you have a good afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
To regulate them?
No, they do that at the state level. This is kind of a shadow market is what's going on, but it's